welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, hi, my name is Keera. And if you like urban legends, paranormal things, anything weird and unexplainable, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I post a new video. For today's video, I picked a perfect one because recently it's been talked about and I believe it's coming out here soon, around the time this video is coming out. Until Dawn is doing a remastered version of the game. And for those who don't know or haven't played the game, I'll put a little skippable thing here because I wouldn't want to spoil too much for you. But in that game, we follow a whole group of people that goes up to the mountains after a tragedy and come face to face with something unexplainable, and that being Windigos. But for today's video, we are going to be talking about the Windigo of Fort Kent. The chilling legend dates back almost 100 years ago. As every year passes, the legend grows and becomes creepier and more well known as people relive and talk about the awful occurrences that happened on that dreadful winter night in 1920 in Fort Kent. The Fort Kent Wendigo was born many years ago, but it still haunts so many people till this day. So you might be wondering, what is a Windigo? A Windigo is a supernatural being belonging to the spiritual traditions of Algonquian. It is an indigenous legend that has been talked about and depicted for years. Through shows and media's word of mouth, even through video game adaptations like Until Dawn. And I'm not trying to promote or plug Until Dawn, except I am a little bit, because everybody should play it at least once. It is one of the best and I think scariest games that I've played, where it's a choice game where your choices pick the story of what's going to happen in the game. So every game through will be different based on the choices that you make, which I find super fun. But I'm just saying, if the creators of Until Dawn or the people who promote it want someone who loves the game to play it on this channel, I 100% could. I mean, if you guys wanted that too, I could do that. I love Until Dawn, and if that's something you guys would want to see, I could 100% play it on this channel as well. It would fit the vibes perfectly of our channel here. So I mean, let me know if you want to see me play Until Dawn here on this channel, and we'll play it a full game through. Probably splitting it up in a few episodes, but we would get it done, and I would see if I could save everybody. Wendigos are described as powerful monster-like creatures that have a desire to kill and eat their victims. For what most people believe, it is said that Wendigos actually started off as humans, or their insatiable sense of hunger for their need of greed, or this sense of weakness that changed in them. Once someone begins this change, they are deemed extremely dangerous because of their thirst for blood. And as they begin to grow more dangerous, their abilities to affect people's health. Do you see the orb? And as they begin to grow more dangerous, their abilities to affect people's health. And as they begin to grow more dangerous, their abilities to affect people's health. As you can see, the orb comes up, stops for a second before doing a loop, then proceeding to gradually get bigger, as if it's moving towards the camera and going past it. I'm just saying, we haven't had an orb in a video in a while, but I just filmed, wink wink if you haven't seen it, the Baby Blue Me Playing It game. Coincidence? Maybe. Could be dust. But we'll see when I'm editing it. And as they grow more dangerous, their abilities to affect people's health and people in general with evil grows. Almost as if the Wendigo is transferring themselves almost like a parasite, or a sense of evil and dread. Most of the versions of the legend are similar, stating a human becomes a Wendigo after his or her soul is corrupted by greed or weakness or by extreme conditions such as hunger and cold. In other legends, it is said that humans become Wendigos when they are possessed by the prowling spirit, during a moment of weakness and despair. They are an extremely terrifying thought, but as soon as I describe what they look like or tell you how some survivors who have survived Wendigos have explained them, you will get goosebumps and not want to ever come across a Wendigo in your life. There are a few variations of Wendigos, but here are some of the most common ways that they have been described. They are described as extremely thin, with its skull and its skeleton pushing through its ashy gray skin that looks like it has the texture that it is rotting slowly. Other stories describe Wendigos as a pale with cold-looking skin giant who gets proportionally larger the more it eats. The last appearance of a Wendigo that we will discuss is that others have described the Wendigos to have pointed or animal-like ears, with antlers or horns sprouting from its head, its skin stretching and ripping from the horns that are protruding. But one thing that is always consistent with people's recollections of Wendigos is the Wendigo's eyes. A Wendigo's eyes have been described as sunken or almost this kind of glowing, like burning coals. Sharp and pointy teeth, tall and extremely skinny, with sickly pale skin, extremely bad breath, and the smell of odor that just reeks of death and decay. And all of these are also very consistent traits of a Wendigo. But one thing is for sure, is that they have superhuman strength and speed, and have heightened sense, which allows them to be exceptional hunters and trackers. This allows them to stalk, overpower, and capture their victims. People also say they have speed so unnatural that they can walk on snow or even on water without sinking or leaving any tracks or signs that they were there. It's almost like they just float on top of the snow or can easily make their way across water without leaving any trace that either you're being followed, you're walking in the direction of a Wendigo, or worse. Wendigos are very similar to skinwalkers, minus a few differences. But I think we can all agree that they are equally terrifying, and I can guarantee no one would want to run into either one of these creatures. Because trust me, I would not. The specific Wendigo that we are talking about today is located, or was located, in the Fort Kent area in Alberta. Fort Kent was once a small settlement in northern Alberta, and now it's just a ghost town. In 1892, the small town of Fort Kent was established and had very bright promises of success and a populated town. They had some unfortunate events that had happened to them. At one point, the town got overran by rats, leaving many people to get infected and catch diseases. And a lot of people lost their lives due to this. And in 1920, they had the worst winter in history, which left many people trapped in their homes for days and possibly even weeks. In the summer of 2021, after a harsh winter, a man's animal showed up dead. Many people thought it was a bear or some type of wild animal, whereas others who had known the legend knew exactly what caused the death and warned everybody else to be cautious. And this leads us into the legend of the Windigo of Fort Kent. The legend dates back to the 1920s, when a strange creature haunted the woods around Fort Kent, and was blamed for a few disappearances and animals' deaths. One night, a rancher heard moaning and wailing and almost like this crying. He decided to investigate, left the safety of his home with a rifle to protect his horses from whatever creature was attacking them. And as he made his way to the field, he saw a very large dark shape with glowing red eyes stumbling towards him. The rancher shot at this creature, trying to scare it off, but in reality, it just seemed to annoy and frustrate the creature. And it wandered back into the woods, disappearing into the darkness. But this was only the start of the town's problems. Thomas Burton was a young and new doctor that arrived in Fort Kent from England in 1921, when it was a small and slow-growing town. Burton came to Fort Kent with his wife to treat the outbreak of smallpox that had befallen the small community, allegedly on the backs of rats, which had invaded the small town, like I stated previously. In the beginning and the first few weeks of him being in Fort Kent, he was successful in fighting the disease and saved many people's lives. And the townsfolk embraced him and his wife as miracle workers. The town had thought they had been saved, but that was until the disease started to spread even more rapidly, and it became uncontrollable. And Burton became overwhelmed with the amount of sick and dying people. He was constantly in contact with the ill, and so was his wife. Soon, they would find out that not even themselves were safe from this illness. It wasn't long before his wife fell ill too, and not long after Burton's multiple attempts to heal her, she eventually passed away. And with his grief and feeling like he had failed to save his wife, Burton locked himself in his home with her dead body. The townsfolk would knock on his door begging for his help, as there was more people getting sick, but he refused to even speak, let alone acknowledge them. In the following days, Burton went mad with grief, and according to the legend, was possessed by a Windigo. This next part might be a little disturbing for some viewers, so if you want to skip ahead, I'll put a timestamp right here just so you can skip ahead and not miss the rest of the legend. I'll just put the timestamp so you miss all the gory and unpleasant stuff that comes along with it. Under the evil spirit's influence, he ate his wife's flesh. When he was done with her, he turned his attentions to the residents of Fort Kent and allegedly went on a killing spree for the next 3 days. Only a few people were spared and got to tell what had happened in those last few days. It is said to be some of the grisliest and most brutal murders in Canada. At the end of the 3rd day, it is said Burton disappeared into the woods around Fort Kent and was never seen or heard from again. But people believe that he morphed into the Windigo. And people claim to still see a Windigo in the area once in a while. When he and his wife arrived, there was 150 people in Fort Kent. 11 were all that remained, at least according to legend, but again, nobody really knows. Although this isn't the first Windigo story here in Alberta or even Canada. There's another very well-known and talked about Windigo as well. Another one of the Windigos that is talked about most frequently is Swift Runner, a Plains Cree trapper. It's said that he was arrested after admitting to killing and eating his wife and children during the winter of 1878, 25 miles from the Hudson Bay Company outpost stock with emergency supplies. I will have a full video coming out on this Windigo story sometime here in the future because it deserves its own recognition and story, not to be just mushed up with the Windigo of Fort Kent. Because the stories are all so different and there's a lot to every single story. Till this day, many people claim that themselves, their friends, their family have encountered and seen Windigos after that horrific night, saying that its howls and laugh almost sound like a coyote, but not at the same time. It's almost as if there's a sense of human behind the screams and the cries that they do. But at the same time, it's like there's no human left. This is something that has haunted Fort Kent's history and many people in the surrounding areas, because who knows how many Windigos are out there besides Thomas Burton. But anyways, that is all that is known about the Fort Kent Wendigo. It is an extremely terrifying one, and being from Alberta myself, it was interesting to read this because I never heard about it until I started doing research and going more in depth with it. Eventually I'll be doing more videos on specific types of Windigos. This one was the Windigo of Fort Kent, and there's many other stories of Windigos being from different places. If you have any Windigos that you'd like me to research, feel free to put them in the comments and I'll see if I can do some research and it could be a possible video one day. But anyways, I hope you guys have a good morning, evening, or night, depending when you're watching this. Bye guys!